Joining us now, one of the senators who signed the letter to McConnell, Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois, a veteran of war herself. Senator, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. So what is your assessment of the damage done, if there is some, in your view, by this long blockade of preventing promotions, including to the Commandant of the United States Marine Corps?
Well, that's exactly it. For the first time in over 100 years, we do not have a commandant of the Marine Corps, which means that there are certain orders that could not be given. You can't order troops to war, for example, if you needed to, along with all sorts of other requirements and things that it takes an actually confirmed commandant of the Marine Corps to be able to do. This has done just really devastated our national security. We have all sorts of officers who cannot move into their new positions. At the recent NATO summit, the incoming general could not go to the NATO meetings because she had not been confirmed. And this is really, the number of officers waiting to be confirmed is only going to grow. We're at over 250 officers, and it can be as high as 600 to 800 by the beginning of next year if Senator Tuberville does not risk this really damaging hold he has on military promotions.
Senator Duckworth, what do you think are the odds that Senator Schumer is going to go through individually with each of these candidates and have a confirmation process one by one, which would be very time-consuming, but it would get the job done? Do you think that there's a chance, too, if he approached it that way, that Senator Tuberville would face pressure from colleagues who didn't want to be stuck in the Senate in August, and he would move a little bit?
Well, Senator Tuberville has not listened to any of his colleagues, even on the Republican side. He's been given several off-ramps, everything from a vote on Senator Ernst's bill. He's been offered the ability to vote on his version of repealing it. He said no, repealing this policy, which, by the way, is absolutely legal. To provide funding reimbursement for travel costs if somebody has to leave the state where they're stationed to get health care. But the process of doing each individual officer one by one, we would never catch up because there's so many more officers waiting to be promoted that we would be a case of one step back, two step forward. As we confirm each person, there would be more than one person added to the list waiting to be promoted. Plus, then we could get nothing else done. We're waiting to do FAA reauthorization. The defense budget has to be passed. We couldn't work on that. The farm bill could not be worked on. And so what Senator Tuberville is doing is basically grinding the Senate to a halt, and we could not get any work done. And he's doing it at the expense of our national security.
Senator, I'm curious what you make of Senator McConnell's response to all of this. He has said publicly, I disagree with what Tammy Tuberville is doing, but these are the rules of the Senate. One senator can do what he's doing right now. And then yesterday, in response to your letter, Senator McConnell's office saying, Democrats, you're in charge of the Senate. You've got the majority. Why don't you do something? How do you respond to that?
Well, my response to that is this plays into Senator McConnell's game right now because he wants to grind the Senate to a halt. He doesn't want the Senate to be successful because he doesn't want President Biden to be successful. And so it's in his best interest to make sure that nothing happens. And this just plays into that. It's really sad because this is putting the well-being of our troops and their military and our military families in jeopardy. It is putting our national security in jeopardy. It's also, grinding efforts to get anything else done in jeopardy as well. I certainly want to pass a farm bill. Our farmers are facing a drought in Illinois and all across the Midwest. We need to make sure we pass crop insurance legislation. There's money in here for military hunger. There is all sorts of good works that are being done, and just to really bring partisan politics into this at a time when there's a war going on in Ukraine and Russia is really, I think, foolhardy.
So, Senator, I want to turn you to a piece you co-authored in the New York Times with Senator Kelly about sustaining the support from the United States and from the West for Ukraine in its fight against Russia. One, as we've been talking about this morning, looks to be going on for a very long time. As I mentioned, you've served on the front lines. You're a double amputee. You're a recipient of the Purple Heart. Why do you believe ongoing, continued support that's been questioned by some Republicans now and by some people running for president on the Republican side? Why do you think it's so important?
It's so important because Ukraine is the bulwark between Russia and our NATO allies. The next country in line is Poland, for example. And Illinois National Guard, where I served for 23 years, has been training the Polish military for over 35 years. We have U.S. troops in Poland right now. If Ukraine were to fall and Russia begins to threaten with these expansionist policies that they're trying, it would result in us having to respond to Article 5 of the NATO treaty, which is mutual self-defense, which means that we would then ourselves be facing American troops in battle to help defend NATO. And frankly, that is not something I want to see happen. In addition, the Ukrainian people are fighting for their own independence. They've shown with heart and spirit and grit and determination that they're not going to give in to this authoritarian regime and Putin's foolhardy war, even though it has devastated their country. And so if they're going to stand and fight, we should stand with them.
So, Senator, standing with them, with the Ukrainians. Today in Ukraine, the skies are quiet. Odessa is being pounded. The classic historical city, along with much of Ukraine, has been destroyed by Russia. Where are the F-16s?
Well, the Ukrainian pilots do need to be trained, and this is part of what we've done all along, which is provided the armaments and the equipment and the training as they need it. I asked for the F-16s early on. I supported that. I supported sending the Abrams tank as well, but at the appropriate time. This is also why I supported President Biden's use of cluster munitions after Russia has been bombarding Ukraine with cluster munitions of their own all this time. We're going to get those F-16s there. They're going to come from allied nations or where they have older generation F-16s. And we are in the process of training Ukrainian pilots right now.
Well, yeah, thank you, Willie. Senator, beyond those F-16s, there's been a lot of talk about cluster munitions that the U.S. is now shipping there. Ukraine has begun to use them in their counteroffensive. A counteroffensive that, by their own admission, has gone pretty slowly. We have been discussing all morning about how Russia is playing the waiting game, believing the U.S. support will eventually dry up. Even if the administration is not willing to push the F-16s over the finish line just yet, what else could be done to try to bolster this counteroffensive as it tries to make up some real ground during this fighting season?
Well, let me tell you that war is hard. War is tough, and Ukrainians are fighting, and they're gaining inch by inch, mile by mile. But frankly, if people want a Hollywood version of war, then they don't understand what war truly is. The Ukrainians are fighting. They are gaining the advantage. They're pushing the front forward. They're pushing the Russians back. And we need to continue to provide them with the basics that they need. What they really need are 115 rounds, right? They need ammunition for their artillery pieces. And that is probably the most effective piece right now. And we need to continue to provide them with the logistical support, the spare parts, the equipment, and yes, the training for the F-16s and getting those jets out there. But I will tell you, if you've been studying history, the history of war in this area, it's always been a grinding ground battle, and that is what they're engaged in right now. So if people expect like a Hollywood ending of somebody, cresting a hill with an Abrams tank and taking over, that's not going to happen. And the way this victory is going to be done is going to be through attrition, one step at a time, and that is what the Ukrainians are doing, which is why we cannot abandon them. We must stand by them and provide them with the logistics that we need. And you saw the determination of not just the United States, but also our NATO allies who came together at the summit just recently to reinforce their support, and that they will continue to provide whatever equipment that they can to the Ukrainian forces.
Another big package from the Biden White House went out just last week. Senator, a day you helped to make possible today, an event where President Biden will sign a proclamation establishing a national monument in honor of Emmett Till and his mother. Till's murder in 1955 helped to spark the civil rights movement. The president will designate a national monument at 3 sites in Illinois and Mississippi. It's an effort to protect places that tell Till's story and to reflect the activism of his mother, Mamie. Senator, you've been pushing for this for some time. A good day to have this recognized, particularly in your home state.
Yes, a good day to commemorate a tragedy, and really the Robert Temple Church being designated as a national monument is really important to the civil rights movement. And, while some on the far right try to whitewash our nation's history and really erase the devastating legacies of slavery and lynchings on Black Americans. I'm really proud that President Biden is taking action to help make sure that generations of Americans have more opportunity to learn about and reflect on Mamie and Emmett's stories and how their actions really helped to spark the civil rights movement. You know, for so many of us, Emmett's funeral in this church in Chicago defines a part of our history. And it couldn't have happened anywhere else. It couldn't have happened in the South, certainly. And so Mamie's really devastatingly brave choice to open her son's casket really shifted our nation and the world and allowed us to have the civil rights movement be successful. And so I'm really proud that the President Biden is doing this. This is going to allow us to teach our nation about history, but also hopefully provoke us to build a more just future for all Americans.
And it will be a very moving moment when the president is introduced by the Reverend Wheeler Parker Jr., who was Emmett Till's best friend and a witness to his abduction. Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois, thanks for being here and thanks for all you've given the country. We appreciate it.